Probably all of you know why we're here. In May and October in 2012, we had two ditchings overseas, which led to, firstly, the industry suspending flights. And when I mean the industry, it was everybody, helicopter operators, production operators, and everybody else said, you know, until we find the root cause, we're not going to fly this again. What Step Change said back in October was very clear. We would not support a return to service unless we had a definitive root cause, and workforce engagement must remain at the very heart of what we're doing.
Well, I think the thinking behind the event is actually part of what we've been trying to do since day one. It's inform the workforce as to where we're at with our process, our investigation, and our level of confidence. So we committed to do that in October. We've tried to continue to do that, and today is just another part of that. So it's almost business as usual for HSSG, but in terms of criticality, it's perhaps more important now because we're about to ask people to get in the back of these aircraft again.
The immediate solution is fairly obviously to remove the moisture.
So there's two barriers around preventing a crack forming, and the first one's a sort of cleaning maintenance routine that will clean the inside of the shafts, remove any residue that's part of the causal factors before we return to service, and will continue to happen regularly through the life of the aircraft. So that barrier stops that kind of initial, or removes that build-up if any exists. The second barrier is this engineering modification, which is an oil jet, and that's been removed. It'll be replaced with a new jet, different nozzle pattern, different spray pattern, which will clean the inside of the shaft much more effectively than the old one. That stops the moisture being trapped, which stops a crack forming. The third barrier, is a barrier that actually allows us to detect a crack if it forms very, very early, so between 2 and 5 millimeters. So they're looking at the shaft using this ultrasonic scanner that detects whether a small crack has been formed. In the event that they detect that, that aircraft won't leave the hangar. It's grounded at that point. The fourth barrier is in-flight monitoring. So in the event that the first three fail, which is improbable, you have this barrier where if we have a crack that's propagated, formed and propagated far enough that we have vibration, it's picked up in cockpit before a pilot has to ditch. So if they find this alarm, if it goes off, they will ultimately have sufficient time to return to land in a safe, controlled manner. The new shaft actually allows remove some of the maintenance burden and engineers out some of the sort of the underpinning issues. Some of the barriers may stay in the new shaft, so what you end up with is a newly engineered shaft, maybe 1 to 2 years almost before it's fitted, but with additional barriers. So you got yet further layers of assurance, and then you end up with an aircraft that's actually will operate in the future much safer than it did in May 2012 when we had the first incident. So that the journey we've been on is to a much safer aircraft. So all the learning will be applied at all stages.
The safety barriers that are being put in place will bring the aircraft up to an equivalent level of safety as the aircraft will be when we have the new shaft. So the only reason, or the primary reason that we're going for a redesigned shaft is to take away a lot of the maintenance burden associated with those safety barriers. And as you heard today, the biggest element of that maintenance burden is the daily non-destructive inspection to detect a crack on the ground in the unlikely case that we will get a crack.
No, the workforce are not going to be comfortable with these aircraft for all sorts of reasons, as we've heard this morning. And that's why we've opened up these channels of communication to try and build that confidence. I wouldn't be comfortable getting into them, but when you put it into perspective, I'd rather be in a 225 or any helicopter for that matter than in a car going down the M6. I would hate to think that anybody turns up at the airport to be told you're flying out the 225 today without having had some communication from their employer, an opportunity to engage, to ask questions, and to have that confidence, assurance that the aircraft they're getting into is safe. Employers are key here. They need to engage these workers now in order to build that confidence. We can do so much, but the employers are really the key. You don't put two helicopters in the sea and not dent confidence. So it's vital that we communicate with them, consult with them. And on top of that, we've got tier upon tier of experts, but you can never be sure you've covered everything. And as we've heard today, some of the guys are throwing into the mix some issues that we need to go away and look at.
Well, I don't think there'll ever be a point where we've reached everybody, where we've ever done enough, and therefore there will be people who, for whatever reason, haven't managed to come along to today's sessions, haven't downloaded the presentation, read the fact sheet, or everything else. That's just part of it. We have 25,000 people out there. Time will tell whether we've done enough, and if we haven't, we'll have to do more.